Afternoon, everyone. Take a look behind me here. You're looking live at Detroit Lakes right now as campers are getting ready for We Fest. People have started to fill up the campgrounds and the parking lots ahead of this week's concerts. We're talking to people getting ready to get the party started, and tonight at 10 we'll hear from We Fest management about their security protocols, how they're planning to keep the massive crowd safe for this year's festival, and what you should know before making your way to Lakes Country. And take a look at this. That's a live look at the Sturgis Rally. Preparations have started with only 2 days until the official start. Law enforcement there is geared up for the thousands of bikers that will ascend on the town. The Pennington County Sheriff's Office plans months in advance, working with law enforcement partners all around the state and even bringing in temporary deputies. In high visibility uniforms, they do everything from traffic control to crowd patrol, they say, to try to get ahead of crimes instead of reacting to them.
So that's the number one thing during the rally, is we want to increase our visibility and work on prevention instead of always responding to the emergency itself.
The annual Sturgis Rally is bringing hundreds of thousands of visitors to the area. Summer joins us now with a first look at your forecast. Summer?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday. Here's a look at our Dakota Magic Casino Skycam near Hankinson, where the clouds and the flex have been moving all day long because we've had a southerly wind or northwesterly wind rather, that picked up today, that ushered in cooler temperatures and drier air, so not nearly as sticky and humid as we were yesterday. But check out our temperatures, 60s and 70s for most. We're at 71 rather in Fargo, 74 in Grand Forks, 68 right now in Bemidji. Looking at satellite and radar, we've had areas of cloud cover through the afternoon, but that cloud cover is decreasing in parts of eastern North Dakota and working its way into the central Red River Valley. Wind has been with us for most of our day, starting to decrease now, no longer seeing widespread gusts into the 20-mile-per-hour range. So here's your planner in Fargo for tonight. We'll continue to see that decreasing wind and temperatures dropping off into the 50s for most, some areas potentially in the 40s. But Stacy, we have some storm chances to talk about, along with the increasing heat heading into the weekend.
All right, thanks so much, Summer. And we want to remind you to keep your VNL weather app handy for forecasts right at your fingertips. Our team will be putting out forecasts just for We Fest, so if you're headed there, you'll be able to use that app to plan your day. You can download and use it for free. Just search VNL Weather in the App Store. New for you at 4, more than 2 months after a Grand Forks man was found dead and officers suspected foul play. A man is being charged for the deadly stabbing. Kendi Jallow was charged with intentional murder and tampering with evidence in the death of 67-year-old Douglas Elgert. Grand Forks police responded to a call about an unresponsive man on May 24th and determined Elgert did not die from natural causes. Court documents say Jallow was at the scene and admitted to investigators that he threw away evidence because, quote, he was scared of getting in trouble. Newly filed court documents now list that evidence as Jallow's bloody shoes, a vodka bottle, and a receipt with blood on it. Officers later found the knife used to kill Elgert inside of his home. A warrant is out for Jallow's arrest. The Minnesota Department of Public Safety has a new canine that can sniff out stolen or illegal money. Canine Bia will work with the Alcohol and Gambling Enforcement Division. She can sniff out cash hidden in homes, buildings, vehicles, or buried in a yard. Once she finds it, she'll sit down and lock on the area. Then agents will take the money into evidence. Her reward for her hard work? Playtime with their favorite squishy ball. Well, China is posturing after House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, launching military exercises all around the island. Beijing calling it a deterrent to separatist forces in Taiwan. Speaker Pelosi is the highest-ranking U.S. official to visit Taiwan in 25 years. But China's foreign minister called the speaker's visit a farce and said the U.S. is infringing on China's sovereignty. The Biden administration says the U.S. expected this.
We have long said no change to the one China policy, and we've long said that we don't support Taiwan independence and that we're going to continue to support Taiwan's self-defense. And her visit there, while I know that drew the ire of Beijing, her visit there was completely consistent with all of that.
Pelosi now heads to South Korea, then Japan, before returning to the U.S. Today, President Biden signed an executive order aimed at protecting abortion rights for the second time since the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. That ruling triggered restrictions and near bans on the procedure in at least a dozen states. The president's executive action calls for possible Medicaid waivers to cover services for women who travel out of state for care. And it comes just 24 hours after Kansas voted to uphold state constitutional rights on abortion. The executive order directs the Secretary of Health and Human Services to consider action to advance access to reproductive health care services, including through Medicaid, improve research on maternal health outcomes, and ensure that health providers comply with federal law, which could include technical assistance for doctors who may be confused in the wake of the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade as they navigate these new state restrictions. As we said, voters in Kansas rejecting a push to remove abortion rights protections from the state's constitution. This would have made abortion illegal in Kansas. It's the first referendum in the country on the issue since the Supreme Court struck down Roe. 60% of voters rejected the measure. A bill to expand benefits for millions of injured veterans, which was held up by Senate Republicans, has now passed. The Senate approved the PACT Act, making it easier for vets to get treatment if they were exposed to toxic burn pits. For veterans and their families, some of who spent days and nights camped outside, along with advocate and former TV host Jon Stewart, it was a victory. Vets groups say they were blindsided last week when some Republicans blocked passage of the law in a procedural dispute over how to budget money for the tens of billions of dollars in costs. President Biden celebrated the bill's passage from the White House. He says he'll sign the bill as soon as it reaches his desk. A new study shows rural America is being hit harder by inflation. State House reporter Skylar Talal takes a look at why.
Impacted by energy or trucking, especially, the prices are just way higher than anything we've ever seen.
The author of the new Iowa State study, Professor David Peters, found rural families are using 91% of their income on expenses, decreasing how much they have left for unexpected costs by nearly 50%.
It makes rural families more vulnerable to unforeseen circumstances that might put them into further debt, and further debt, inability to pay, leads to default, and just in general reduced financial well-being of rural families.
Peter says high gas prices are to blame since rural households have to travel further than those in the city, and there could be other unintended consequences.
We might see some people choosing to leave some of the smaller towns and moving into larger communities.
Peter says other data collected shows that depending on the farm's size, some could see a decrease in their net income, ranging from 12% to over 150%. And with roughly 83,000 farms in Iowa, many are feeling the impacts as well.
You're waiting 6 months to, get a return. You hope you get enough to kind of pay the bills and that there's a little left at the end of the day.
Steve Swanka is a farmer in Tiffin. He says he's lucky enough to live near Iowa City, but says it's still difficult.
Just a lot of risk, a lot of leverage that's just sitting out there waiting for the market, and everybody's just hoping it'll turn out okay.
Swanka says he's seeing products like nitrogen nearly triple, but what's most surprising to him is the rising cost of pretty much everything around the farm.
Something so insignificant like a roll of wire, for instance, has been between $10 and $12 my whole life. Now it's 30. I almost, my jaw almost hit the counter the last time I had to buy a roll of wire.
Swanka hopes he won't have to start raising his prices, but he feels it may be inevitable. In Des Moines, Skylar Talal reporting.
Meanwhile, consumer debt continues to rise, according to the New York Federal Reserve. It topped $16 trillion now for the first time ever. Experts say most of the increase was driven by a jump in mortgage borrowing. Credit card balances increased by $46 billion. They've increased by $100 billion over the past year. That's the biggest percentage increase in more than 20 years. And Americans opened 233 million new credit card accounts during the second quarter. That's the most since 2008. The Department of Health and Human Services says the number of Americans without health insurance coverage fell to an all-time low of 8% this year. Before last year, the rate of uninsured Americans consistently remained in the double digits for decades. About 26 million people in the U.S. still don't have health insurance.